Why you shouldn't marry a Chinese girl. That's the title and the topic of this video. But right here at the top of the video, I want to put out a disclaimer. This video is a generalization and there are always exceptions to the rule. The points I'm about to make about Chinese women and the difficulties in having a successful and fulfilling marriage with one refer to the majority of them, but not all. In Chinese, there's an idiom that goes like this, 以偏概全, and it essentially means to generalize. Obviously, we shouldn't lump everyone in together, but in order to tackle a topic such as this one, the things I'll mention here are common enough where I can say with a high degree of confidence that even if you don't encounter each of these challenges, you'll most likely at least run into a couple of them. I've spent a decade in China and I have dated girls from various regions here in China. I also live and interact with the Chinese on a daily basis, so I can humbly say that I know what I'm talking about here. Lastly, the viewpoints that I state here apply to Chinese women in mainland China, particularly those who have never lived or studied abroad, which accounts for the vast majority. I am not including women from Taiwan or Hong Kong in this opinion piece. Short-term relationships will probably be fine. It's when you're in it for the long haul that things get trickier and trickier. And what seems like a small issue at first can very easily turn into a big deal later, and oftentimes can even end up being a deal breaker. The longer the relationship is, the more problems you'll run into. So, first on the list, you ready? Room temperature. Sounds weird, right? Well, what you may or may not know is that Chinese are very sensitive to room temperature, and more specifically, they are highly averse to two main things: fans blowing wind in their direction, which I have currently blowing on me right now while I'm recording this video, and air conditioning. Chinese believe that air hitting your body directly is bad for you and can cause health issues and body pains. They refer to this as shoufeng. No Chinese like shoufeng. It worries them and they don't want it. Essentially, it's wind hitting the body for a prolonged period of time. Even if it's a sweltering hot summer and they have no AC, only a fan, they are still extremely cautious and afraid of letting wind from the fan make direct contact with their bodies, particularly when they're sleeping. I mean, just look at the headline of this article. I'll translate it for you. What are the effects of blowing electric fans for a long time on the body? Fan disease is more terrible than air conditioning disease. Fan disease, guys. Fan disease. You could also say fan sickness. You could translate it that way as well. And that leads us to the next issue, the perfect segue, the deep-rooted fear of air conditioning. Let me read that translated headline for you once more. What are the effects of blowing electric fans for a long time on the body? Fan disease or fan sickness is more terrible than air conditioning sickness. Notice that they also mentioned another disease that you've never heard of, air conditioning disease or air conditioning sickness. Yes, that is actually a thing in China that 99.99% of the population believes in. They genuinely believe that AC is harmful to your health. Many homes do, in fact, have air conditioners, but they rarely turn them on. And when they are turned on, they make sure that the temperature is not very cool and that the wind does not blow in their direction. So they might point it to the side, they might direct the wind to go up or down, but they will not let it blow in their direction. Cool wind and air conditioning rule many conversations in China. Oh, it's too cold. Don't let the wind touch you. Don't use AC, it will make you sick, are common comments. The fear of AC, in fact, is so strong that it largely overrides the fear of heat stroke or heat sickness. What is this air conditioner sickness that has them so fear-struck? Well, they basically believe it's similar to a cold. What they have done, in my estimation, is drawn a faulty conclusion based on the fact that most people with AC units aren't even aware that the filter inside of it needs to be cleaned or changed. Over time, dust collects, and then when they turn on the AC, the dust and dirt particles blow out, they're spread throughout the room, and then the people breathe in those particles and they catch the sniffles. Thus, air conditioning sickness is born and AC is just bad for your health. They do not realize that it's just a dusty filter that needs cleaning. They draw the conclusion that it's the cool air itself being released that is the cause of your sniffles. This may not sound like much now, but just imagine if you married a Chinese woman and you're the kind of guy that likes a nice, cool room. Chances are your significant other will not allow it. So either prepare to sleep in different rooms, argue a lot, sweat throughout the night, try to get used to it, or maybe break up. Whatever the case may be, stress and discomfort will find you. Next on the list, parents-in-law. Chinese parents baby their children and devote so much time, energy, and money into their upbringing that they expect something in return. They expect the kids to repay the favor when they get older. That's right, when the Chinese son or daughter grows up and gets married, often his or her parents will be joining the party. And by joining the party, I mean literally living with you in your home under the same roof 24/7. And even though it's now your house, it still won't be your rules. The parents will expect to have a say in every aspect of your life. A few hypothetical situations that could easily arise. Let's see. Okay, you all decide to get a pet dog. Well, the parents will complain. Many older Chinese do not like dogs and are in fact afraid of them. They also say they're just an unnecessary drain on finances. But they will say that you can't have a dog because dogs will bite you. They'll pee and poop all over the house and they'll spread disease to you. Or maybe you have a child. Perhaps your Chinese partner is somewhat okay with air conditioning in a cool environment. Well, I can promise you that her parents will not be okay with it. If you try to turn on the AC, they will criticize you for it and tell you to turn it off before you make your child sick. And obviously, that kind of pressure, which is essentially questioning your ability as a parent, will inspire you and motivate you to follow what they say. It's a lot of pressure. They will have a say in your interior decorating. They will have a say in your daily habits, your dietary habits. They will insist on the superiority of their ways of ensuring proper hygiene, which often means wiping down all surfaces with the same wet rag and being afraid to use soap or disinfectants. I could go on for days, but I think you get my point. The reality is that with the older generations in China, there is a gap in terms of education and basic courtesy and manners that is sure to cause you many a headache and will probably cause your hair to prematurely turn gray. Be forewarned. Next on the list, unreciprocated understanding and cultural acceptance. Now, let me explain. When you get into a relationship with a Chinese partner, you need to realize something. They will love their own food and probably not really like yours. That's putting it lightly. They will want to celebrate their holidays and want you to as well. But more than likely, they will not show the same or any enthusiasm about yours and might even say something like, "We Chinese don't celebrate Christmas." Naturally, you, as a non-Chinese, probably wouldn't tell your significant other, "We Americans only celebrate American holidays. We don't celebrate Dragon Boat Festival or the Lunar New Year." You wouldn't say that because, well, it's kind of rude for starters, and it doesn't show a willingness to embrace your partner's culture. And that's not a very good recipe for a successful relationship. Also, there's a chance that your partner will primarily only want to eat Chinese food. If you don't really like Chinese food or only want it from time to time and want to keep a little more diversity in your diet, that could potentially cause issues. For Chinese, you have to remember they grew up eating Chinese food daily and having very little exposure to foods from other countries. They grow up hearing that Chinese food is the best in the world and that people all around the globe love it, and that other cuisines are inferior and have very few delicious options. Many Chinese don't eat cheese, they don't use butter, have never heard of most of the foods that we grew up eating and love, and in general, there is a pervasive unwillingness to accept or even try many of these unfamiliar things. Chances are you'll be the one bending a lot more to your partner's preferences. Meanwhile, the foods you like will often be laughed about, cringed about, and told, "Oh, that's not delicious." Maybe you're okay with this, but just know that some variation of what I just mentioned will certainly find you. Another issue that faces many couples, I've seen this time and time again: poor communication. How good is her English? How good is your Chinese? Do you know the habits and lifestyles and preferences of Chinese people? Does she make an effort to know how people from your part of the world operate? Good communication is hard enough with people from your own culture. It's several orders of magnitude more difficult when trying to communicate with someone who comes from a completely different culture and has a different native tongue. And the last thing that I'll mention here in this video is an issue that's only getting worse and worse as the years go by: fervent nationalism and patriotism, or hyper-patriotism. Most of you who follow China-related matters know that there's a growing nationalism under the reign of the current Chinese leader, Xi Jinping. Even in my years of interacting with China and the Chinese, I've seen this aspect ramp up at a staggering pace. The education system in China is likely very dissimilar to the education system in your country. They are taught here in China that China is the best country in the world, and that neither China nor its leadership can do any wrong. It's not up for discussion or debate. They are also taught that other countries and systems are vastly inferior to China in terms of culture, sophistication, intelligence, safety and public order, history, etc. The list goes on. So you're likely to find that your Chinese partner will not be open to certain viewpoints and will likely get quite emotional if you all disagree on certain things or if you hold any critical positions regarding China. In the Western world, we grow up being challenged on our ideas. We grow up hearing about the sins of our forefathers. In fact, we hear about this to a fault. In China, it's the exact opposite. They grow up in a pro-China bubble where they are taught to adhere to one line of thinking, and ideas to the contrary are not even imagined. When your ideas are never challenged and then suddenly someone challenges them, what do you expect to happen? The result is generally a highly emotional outburst and a partial or full-blown temper tantrum. Even if your Chinese wife moves to your country, it's likely that she'll still follow Chinese social media and news for her updates and pastime, which will continue to reinforce her deeply ingrained opinions and paradigms. Now, some Chinese can slowly learn to accept their ideas being challenged and accept criticism on certain things, but it's a touchy issue and requires a lot of time and patience. But then again, some will never budge, and you'll have to accept the fact that it's either her way or the highway. I hope you all have found this video interesting. If it pertains to you in any way, please feel free to share. And if you have any personal issues or questions or tough times that you're going through on something related to this topic, and you would like someone to talk to, someone who understands, you can look me up on Patreon, where you can have a direct private line of communication with me. Links will be in the video description below. Now, I want to close out this video by saying, yet again, that this doesn't apply to all Chinese women. There are always exceptions. There are many people around the world who have very happy and fulfilling marriages and long-term relationships with Chinese women and men. We're all human, after all. And a lot of it comes down to finding the person that is right for you. You just have to use good judgment and find someone who's compatible with you, with your value system, with your beliefs, with your personality. Don't let the initial honeymoon phase of the relationship blind you. Take things slowly and ease into the relationship. Do not let her or her parents rush you into marrying. That is a mistake that many make, and it usually doesn't end very well. Look forward to hearing from you all in the comments section below. We'll catch you in the next video. 下次再见。